I never thought I would come home from wildfire duty to this nightmare. My heart sank before I even reached the driveway. The snow was falling hard, but it was not the cold that made me shiver. It was the silence inside my own house. My daughter, she was gone. Every door locked, every window barred. Then I saw it, her tiny footprints leading to the icy cottage behind our property. And that is when I realized someone had betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. What happened next changed everything. My name is Daniel, I am 35, and I had just returned from 2 grueling weeks on wildfire duty. My body ached from exhaustion, my mind was still swimming in smoke and sirens. But nothing could have prepared me for what awaited me at home. The snow crunched under my boots as I approached our driveway. At first glance, everything looked normal. The street was quiet, the neighborhood blanketed in white, but the silence pressed down on me in a way that did not feel natural. Something was wrong. I fumbled with the key in the lock, my fingers numb from the cold, but the door would not budge. I tried the windows one by one and realized with a sinking feeling that every possible entrance was sealed shut. My heart raced. I called out for my daughter Emma, her small voice echoing from some distant memory. Only silence answered. The living room lights were off, curtains drawn, the familiar warmth of home replaced by icy emptiness. It was a coldness that went beyond temperature, a sense that someone had invaded everything I held dear. I remembered the small cottage at the edge of our property. It had always been a place Emma played during the summer, her laughter ringing through the trees. Now something drew me toward it, like a magnet I could not resist. As I trudged through the snow, the wind whipped around me, biting at my cheeks and ears. My eyes caught something in the drift-tiny footprints leading to the side door. They were unmistakably hers. I dropped to my knees, following the prints with trembling hands and a mind spiraling with fear and anger. Who could do this? Who would lock a child in a freezing, empty cottage and leave her there? The door was partially ajar. I pushed it open slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run, to call the police, to do something. But I could not stop myself. Inside, the air was frigid, and my breath fogged in front of me. I could hear her soft whimpers from the far corner, the sound slicing through me sharper than any blade. She was curled up on the floor, shivering violently, her tiny hands covering her face. Her eyes widened when she saw me, and I saw the relief wash over her, but it was mingled with fear that made my blood boil. The cottage smelled faintly of alcohol and cigarette smoke. It was not the first time I had noticed it creeping around my life, but this time it was undeniable. Someone had done this on purpose. My mind raced, tracing every recent argument. Every neighbor I suspected, every person who had ever shown resentment toward me or Emma. The anger coiled inside me like a live wire, electric and consuming. This was no accident. This was deliberate. I lifted Emma into my arms, feeling her small body trembling against mine. I whispered that everything would be okay, even as rage boiled beneath my calm exterior. Whoever had done this would not walk away unnoticed. I could feel the promise of retribution forming, cold and precise. For now, my focus was her safety, her warmth, the soft sound of her breath returning to normal, but I knew that the story did not end here. The person responsible had underestimated me, and that would be their greatest mistake. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white, masking the darkness that lingered beneath. I stood there for a long moment, holding her close, my mind already racing ahead. I would find out who did this. I would make sure they felt the weight of what they had done. Justice would not be delayed, and it would be absolute. This was only the beginning. If you have ever felt powerless, betrayed, or watched someone you love be put in danger, hit that like button and subscribe. This story is not just about fear, it is about rising up, taking control, and seeing justice served in the most satisfying way. Stay with me, because every second of this tale will grip you, shock you, and make you question what you would do if it happened to you. The days after I rescued Emma were tense, every moment saturated with fear and anger. I stayed awake at night, listening for the faintest sound outside our house, imagining footsteps in the snow. The click of a lock turning, the soft scrape of a hand on a window. Sleep became a stranger. I could not shake the image of her frozen little body, the way her tiny lips had turned blue, the way her eyes had pleaded for me to save her. Someone had crossed a line that could never be forgiven. It did not take long to realize who was behind it. My neighbor, Jeff, a man I had once called a friend, had always carried a quiet resentment toward me. He had mocked my firefighting work, whispered lies about my parenting, and made subtle threats that I had brushed off as harmless. But now, his disdain had escalated into something much darker. Every interaction with him felt loaded, every glance heavy with unspoken malice. He was smart, calculating, but I could see the cracks in his arrogance. He believed he was untouchable. I started noticing small things. Emma mentioned toys disappearing when she played outside, doors mysteriously locked when she went to bed, strange noises in the night. I confronted him once, casually, asking if he had seen anything unusual, and he laughed. That laugh was different this time. It was cold, hollow, almost triumphant. I felt the blood drain from my face. He knew I suspected him, and he was daring me to act. Every trip to the grocery store, every walk through the neighborhood, felt like walking through a battlefield. I caught him staring at me from behind curtains, following me at a distance, and every time I met his gaze, I could feel the unspoken challenge. He was trying to break me, to make me doubt my ability to protect my family. But every nerve in my body screamed that I would not falter. I was not a man who could be intimidated, not by him, not by anyone. I began documenting everything: timestamps, strange occurrences, footprints in the snow, the faint smell of smoke near the cottage. Each note, each picture, was a piece of evidence, a silent threat waiting to be unveiled. I could feel the tension building inside me, a pressure that demanded release. I wanted him to feel the fear he had inflicted on me, to understand the helplessness he had forced upon my daughter. I wanted justice, precise and undeniable. But the more I watched him, the more I realized he was clever, always one step ahead. He had a way of blending in, of making the ordinary seem innocent. He smiled at neighbors, helped with chores, and all the while he was the same man who had locked my daughter in that icy cottage. The audacity of it made my jaw clench. He thrived on manipulation, feeding off the chaos he created. At night, I could not sleep without replaying every detail of that day: the crunch of snow under his boots, the faint glimmer of his flashlight through the trees, the look in my daughter's eyes when she realized she was trapped. The memory burned into my mind, a constant reminder of what was at stake. I knew he would try again if I did not act. I also knew that when I acted, it had to be perfect. There could be no mistakes. The tension became unbearable. I could feel the anticipation coiling in my chest, a mixture of dread and determination. Every passing day was a countdown, every interaction a chess move in a game I could not afford to lose. He had underestimated me, and that would be his greatest mistake. Soon, the scales would tip, and I would make sure that the pain he had caused would be returned tenfold, calculated, and inevitable. The moment that broke me did not come with shouting or confrontation. It came quietly, in the smallest detail, on a night that felt too calm for the storm building inside my chest. Emma was asleep on the couch beside me, wrapped in 2 blankets, her thumb still in her mouth, like she used to do when she felt unsafe. The television was on, but I was not watching it. I was watching her chest rise and fall, counting each breath like it was something I could lose if I looked away too long. That was when I noticed the back door handle slowly turning. It was subtle, almost invisible, but I saw it. My heart stopped, then slammed so hard it felt like it would crack my ribs. I did not move, I did not breathe, I just watched. The handle twisted once, then stopped. A pause. Then again, whoever was there realized it was locked. I stood up without making a sound. In that moment, something inside me changed. Fear turned into clarity. Panic turned into purpose. I was done reacting. I was done surviving. I was going to take control. The handle stopped moving. A shadow passed the frosted glass, then nothing. Silence again. But this time, it was different. This time, I knew for certain. Jeff was not finished. And if I stayed passive, if I stayed polite, if I stayed cautious, he would keep pushing until something irreversible happened. I sat back down slowly, forcing my hands to stop shaking. My thoughts were racing, but they were no longer chaotic. They were sharp, focused. I started replaying everything in my mind like a puzzle coming together. The locked doors, the footprints, the smell of smoke, his laugh, his eyes when he thought no one was watching. This was not random cruelty. This was control. He wanted power. He wanted fear. And he believed I was too tired, too distracted, too broken to fight back. He was wrong. I looked at Emma, and something settled deep in my chest. A promise, not of rage, not of reckless revenge, but of certainty. I would expose him. I would corner him. I would make the truth unavoidable. And when the truth came out, it would destroy the mask he hid behind. I was no longer thinking like a victim. I was thinking like a man who had nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. The next morning, I started paying attention in a different way. I did not confront him. I did not accuse him. I watched. I listened. I noticed how his smile never reached his eyes, how he always positioned himself where he could see my house, how his tone shifted when he spoke about Emma, just slightly too interested, slightly too involved. People like him relied on disbelief. They thrived because no one wanted to imagine someone so close could be so dangerous. That was his shield, and I was about to tear it apart. I began writing everything down, not emotionally, not angrily, clinically, dates, times, patterns. I noticed how he always appeared when I left for errands, how the strange noises happened when my car was gone, how his garage light flicked on in the middle of the night like a signal flare. Each detail was a thread. Together, they formed a rope, and I was ready to pull. The fear that had once paralyzed me now fueled me. It sharpened my senses. I was no longer just a father trying to keep his child safe. I was a man preparing to confront a predator who believed he was invisible. Jeff thought I was weak because I stayed quiet. He thought silence meant submission. He thought patience meant fear. He did not understand something crucial. Silence can be preparation. Patience can be strategy. And calm can be far more dangerous than anger. That night, after Emma fell asleep in her room, I stood by the window and watched his house. His lights flickered on and off like always. He moved behind his curtains without knowing he was being observed. He was comfortable, confident, certain of his superiority. That confidence was his vulnerability. I did not need to rush. I did not need to explode. I needed precision. I needed timing. I needed truth that could not be denied. And for the first time since I found my daughter locked in that freezing cottage, I felt something close to peace. Not because it was over, but because I had finally decided how it would end. I did not rush. I slowed everything down. Revenge was not about speed. It was about accuracy. One wrong move, and Jeff would retreat back into the shadows where men like him survived. I needed him in the light. First, I installed cameras, small ones, hidden ones, one by the cottage, one facing the back gate, one inside my garage pointed at the driveway. The soft hum of the devices coming online felt like a heartbeat returning to my house. Quiet, steady, watching. Then I changed my routine. I started leaving at the same time every morning. Same jacket, same steps, same engine sound. I made sure he noticed. Predictability was bait. On the third day, I saw it. His garage door lifted an inch the moment my car disappeared around the corner. My chest tightened. Not with fear, with confirmation. That night, I pretended to leave again. I drove 2 blocks, turned off my headlights, and circled back on foot. The snow absorbed my footsteps. The air was sharp and clean, burning my lungs with every breath. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. The cottage door moved first, slow, careful, like a man who believed he owned the dark. I watched through my phone screen as he stepped inside the camera frame. His face was clear. No hood, no disguise, just confidence. The kind that comes from thinking no one is brave enough to challenge you. My jaw tightened. I whispered to myself, "Got you." But I did not move yet, not until he tried to lock the door again. Not until his hand wrapped around the same handle that had trapped my daughter. That was the moment I needed. The sound of the latch clicking echoed through the stillness like a gunshot. I stepped forward, step away from the door. His body jerked like electricity had hit him. He spun around, eyes wide, breath caught in his throat. "Daniel," he said, forcing a smile that collapsed immediately. "You scared me." "No," I said quietly. "You scared my daughter." Silence fell between us, thick, heavy, real. "You have no proof," he said. I held up my phone. The screen glowed between us, showing his face in perfect clarity, entering, locking, smiling. His face drained of color. That was when I spoke again. "I am not here to hurt you. I am here to end you." He laughed nervously. "You sound insane. I sound like a father who is done." He took a step back. Then another. His confidence evaporated. The predator realizing the trap had closed. The next part was not loud, it was precise. I sent the footage to the police, to child services, to the neighborhood watch group, to every platform where his image could not be buried. One press of a button, and his world began to collapse. His phone buzzed. Once, twice, then continuously. His eyes dropped to it. Panic replaced arrogance. "What did you do?" he whispered. "I told the truth," I said. That truth moved fast. Sirens arrived before he could speak again. The sound cut through the night like justice tearing the sky open. Blue and red lights washed over the snow, over his face, over the cottage that had become his crime scene. The officers stepped out, calm, controlled. "Final, Jeff Collins," one of them said. "You are under arrest." He looked at me like I had just taken his oxygen away. As they cuffed him, he tried one last time. "This is not over." I leaned close enough for only him to hear. "It ended the moment you touched my child." The door shut, the car pulled away. The sound faded into the distance. And for the first time since that frozen night, my shoulders dropped. My breathing slowed. The cold no longer felt like an enemy. It felt clean. The courtroom was colder than the winter outside, not in temperature, but in atmosphere, the kind of cold that stripped away excuses and left only truth behind. I sat in the front row, hands resting on my knees, feeling every muscle in my body tense as Jeff was led in. He did not look like the man who once smirked behind his curtains. He looked smaller, thinner. The arrogance that once clung to him like armor was gone. For the first time, he would be seen. Not as the friendly neighbor, not as the helpful man, but as exactly what he was. When his eyes met mine, they did not carry challenge anymore. They carried something closer to disbelief, as if he still could not understand how the power had shifted so completely. The judge entered. The room stood. The sound of everyone sitting again felt like a door closing behind him. This was it. The prosecutor spoke first. Calm, methodical. Each word landed like a measured strike. Video footage, timestamps, camera angles, the recordings of him entering the cottage, locking the door, watching, waiting. The gasps from the audience came quietly, like air escaping from a punctured room. I did not look at them. I watched him. His jaw tightened, his hands curled, his leg bounced uncontrollably. The man who thrived on control was losing it in front of everyone. When they played the footage on the large screen, I heard someone whisper, "That is a child." Jeff closed his eyes. I felt my chest expand, not with pride, but with validation. This was not revenge in the dark. This was truth standing in full light. The prosecutor turned toward me. "Daniel, would you like to speak?" I stood slowly. My legs felt heavy, but my voice did not. My daughter trusted this neighborhood. She trusted the safety of her home, and this man used that trust as a weapon. Not once, not accidentally, repeatedly, intentionally. I do not want him to feel fear. I want him to feel accountability. The silence after my words was absolute. Jeff finally looked at me again. His eyes were wet. Not with remorse, with defeat. The judge leaned forward. "Jeff Collins, your actions show a clear pattern of predatory behavior and deliberate endangerment of a minor. You will serve time, and you will be registered. There will be no hiding after this." The gavel struck. Once final, a sound that felt like a chain snapping. Jeff collapsed back into his seat. His shoulders sagged. His head dropped. No protest, no argument, just the quiet understanding that his carefully built mask had shattered beyond repair. That was his humiliation, not loud, not dramatic. Complete. As he was escorted out, people watched him with open awareness. Some with anger, some with disgust, some with shock, but no one with doubt. Outside the courtroom, the air felt different, lighter, like the weight of a storm finally lifting from the sky. I stood there for a moment, eyes closed, breathing in deeply. My hands were shaking, but this time, not from fear, from release. I had carried the terror of that frozen night in my chest like a burning coal. Every second, every breath, and now it was gone. Not erased, but resolved. Emma ran into my arms when she saw me. I lifted her easily, pressing my forehead against hers. "It is over," I whispered. Her small hands wrapped around my neck. "Is he gone?" "Yes," I said. "He cannot hurt anyone again." That was the triumph, not dominance, not cruelty, protection. Justice did not roar, it whispered. And that whisper carried more power than any scream ever could. I did not feel like a man who had taken revenge. I felt like a father who had reclaimed safety, and that was everything. The days after Jeff was taken away felt surreal. It was not a celebration. There was no fanfare. It was quiet, almost ordinary, yet charged with a sense of relief that I had not realized I was holding my breath to experience. Walking into the house, seeing Emma play in her room, hearing her laugh without hesitation, it was a reminder of why I had endured the fear, the sleepless nights, the tension that had twisted my chest for weeks. Justice was served, but it was not about vengeance in the way people imagine. It was about balance, about righting what had been so violently wronged. I thought a lot about karma during those weeks, not in the spiritual sense, not in the idea that the universe would magically punish those who deserved it. I thought about consequences, about cause and effect. Every action has weight. Every choice leaves a mark. Jeff's choices brought him to this point. He believed he could manipulate, intimidate, and hurt without repercussions. He underestimated me. He underestimated the power of a parent who refuses to surrender in the face of cruelty. Karma is not luck. It is preparation meeting opportunity. And in that meeting, he found his downfall. I also reflected on fear, how it can paralyze, distort, and consume. Before, fear had a voice that drowned out logic and reason. Every night, every strange noise, every footprint in the snow had grown into a thunderous warning in my mind. And yet, fear was also a teacher. It forced me to watch closely, to notice patterns, to plan. It sharpened my instincts. It taught me that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is taking action in spite of it. I had been afraid, but I had acted anyway. That choice changed everything. And the lessons for Emma were clear, even at her age. Life is not always fair. Some people are cruel. Some will betray trust without remorse. But there is power in standing up, in protecting yourself and those you love. Justice does not always come immediately, but it can be ensured when you act with purpose and clarity. That was the message I wanted to give her, not through words, but through action. She saw it, she lived it, and that will shape her far more than any conversation could. Looking forward, I understand that life has a rhythm of loss and recovery. We cannot control every risk, but we can control how we respond. We can choose to be passive, letting fear dictate our lives, or we can choose to prepare, to protect, and to assert what is right. I do not feel triumphant in a boastful sense. I feel resolved, complete. A weight that had been pressing down on me for weeks has lifted. My focus now is building a future where Emma feels safe, where she can grow without shadows lingering behind every laugh, every step, every night. There is no forgiveness in my reflections. Jeff does not deserve it. He cannot reclaim the innocence he tried to steal. But I do not need to dwell on him anymore. His chapter is closed. Mine is just beginning. Every small victory, every ordinary morning, every moment of peace is more meaningful now because of what I endured. And because I refuse to allow fear or cruelty to win, life continues. Snow melts, seasons change, but the clarity remains. There is a rhythm to justice, a sense of inevitability when preparation meets opportunity, and a profound relief when wrongs are corrected and the people you love are safe. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button. Tell us in the comments about your most satisfying story of standing up for what is right. And subscribe for more gripping tales of courage, justice, and relentless determination. Every story reminds us that courage can be quiet, patience can be powerful, and truth always finds a way to shine.